I want to share with you how God answered my prayer after I chose to follow through on an unction in my spirit to sun gaze this morning. I'll read my prayer last because I want to go right into the notes that I received this morning. I'm going to read every little thing that I wrote, so please stick with me because I believe this will help someone else. June 27, 9:01 a.m. I started writing the moment all of this started flooding into me. I wrote, been up since 6 a.m., brewed coffee, and came outside to watch the sunrise. I gazed at the sun for 2 hours, eyes open and shut, no particular intent, just receiving whatever comes. I heard, give us this day our daily bread. I began to meditate on that. Open my Bible to Matthew chapter 6, verses 5 through 14. Our daily bread is the sun, the S-U-N. The sun cracks the horizon every day, whether cloudy or not, and gives life to everything it touches. Every day we get access to God's only begotten Son, the S-U-N. And even on the cloudy days, even when we can't see the sun, or even at night, remnants of the sun are surrounding us. Everything the sun touches has life, even when the sun isn't visibly present. Everything we use is a byproduct of what the sun has given life to, unless it's genetically or chemically modified. If so, it's not from the sun rejects it. Next page. Assume your identity in Christ. This came along after I heard this morning, give us this day our daily bread. I opened up my Bible to the book of Matthew, to the Lord's Prayer, and the wind blew my Bible a page back, and there was a sticky note that I placed in my Bible last year. It was something that was in my spirit, and it was assume your identity in Christ, and I didn't know exactly what to do with it in that moment, so I wrote it down and I stuck it there. Assume your identity in Christ. Christ means the anointed one. My notes say, come into one with Christ. You are being called. Answer. Will you answer? You're needed on the mount. You're being called to the mount. Mount means a mountain or high hill. Ascending, climbing, growing, increasing, soaring, skyrocketing, surging. Mount also means to gradually increase, rise, or get bigger. You're needed at the mount to receive instruction. Instruction to identify and rise in Christ. But how? After you agree to be led by the Spirit of God into the wilderness for refinement, deconstruction / reconstruction. Identity or oneness in the anointed one. To activate this process, you must fast. Going to the mount is equivalent to you fasting and connecting with God. After fasting, this is the next page. After fasting, the true test comes. The tempter comes to test the area or areas in which you fasted. The tempter tempts in 3 ways: desires of the flesh, desires of the eyes, pride of life. That's 1 John chapter 2, verse 16. In the same manner, you will be tested. Fasting. Matthew chapter 4, the temptation of Jesus. It says he fasted. After being led into the wilderness by the Spirit, he fasted 40 days and 40 nights. And after, he was left hungry. So when we go to the mount to fast, we should expect to come out hungry. This goes back to the daily bread in the Lord's Prayer. And immediately this reminded me of Esau giving over his birthright in Genesis chapter 25, verses 29 through 34. It said, Esau came in from the field. The field is likened to coming out of the wilderness. It also said that Esau was exhausted. That's equivalent to the hunger as a result of coming out of the wilderness. After you come down from the mount, temptation will come. Your ability to trust Spirit or God for what's been deposited during fasting or oneness comes hunger. There's a fine line between the hunger of the spirit and the hunger of the flesh. Feeding your flesh means feeding into what the tempter has to offer. That's how you succumb to temptation. During temptation, feed your spirit and not your flesh. Don't just fast and then go back to what you were fasting from. Follow what you practiced during fasting when experiencing temptation. Back to Esau. He allowed his physical hunger to outweigh the value of his birthright. The birthright is spiritual because it's a covenant established by God. Don't allow the exhaustion of the field, the temptation, to cost you your oneness or your connection with God, which is your spiritual birthright. That's how Esau came to mind for me. Back to the notes. In other words, don't let the hunger of your flesh outweigh the hunger of your spirit. Next page. To be hungry means a strong desire or craving for something. My notes say, check yourself. Take note of the 3 schemes of the tempter. Don't make decisions hastily. Take time to evaluate and assess through the lens of oneness with God. Remember, the Son will reject what is not of him. No imitations or genetically or chemically modified things will remain. It will be rejected. How you approach temptation or the unknown comes down to whether you're approaching it out of flesh or spirit. What's produced of the flesh will not last, which is why the Son rejects it. Only what is of the Spirit, of what is developed with the guidance of the Spirit with God, will stand. That's why the ministry of the Son stands today, forever, and always. That is why in Matthew chapter 4 it stated that after he resisted the temptation of the devil, he was able to begin his ministry. Last page. The Son is your daily bread. The SUN is your daily bread. As the Son sustains all life, it is the giver of all things through God. Just as the sun can remove the light, and slowly life ceases, it can give and take away. The flesh dies and the spirit becomes dark. He says, now you have the keys. The keys are come into covenant, fast, embrace the wilderness, the unknown, lean to your oneness with God, with Spirit, to guide you so when the tempter comes knocking, you don't sell your spiritual birthright for fleshly satisfaction. And I want to leave y'all with this prayer that I wrote down. And that's how I know all of this is an answer to that. And I didn't realize it until I was done taking my notes. I wrote, God, I feel you've recently told me to reinforce my faith. I felt that so strongly since I wrote it down on that sticky note at work. Lord, it wasn't my intention to drop my faith. I think you know that. But in hindsight, I now see that I did. More importantly, I now realize and understand that I dropped my faith for something man could give me. I gave it more attention mentally and emotionally than I should have, rather than relying on my faith in you, my Redeemer, my healer, my miracle worker, my personal giver of all things. I was placing my faith outside of you, outside of self. I questioned my worthiness. I worried about it. I don't want to do that. How do I stop? How do I stop exchanging all you have to offer me for temporary satisfaction and dissatisfaction? And on that day, I read Hebrews, and I said, based on what I've read in Hebrews 3 through 4, verse 13, I need to enter your rest. Without your rest, there is no peace, satisfaction, etc. Instead, there is only hardened hearts, unbelief, wrath, death in the wilderness.